Welcome to today's webinar. I want to thank everyone for taking some time out of their busy schedule to spend some time with me and Umar. My name is Taylor Carden. I'm an account executive over at XIQ, and joining me today is Umar Khan, who is also an AE in sales. And Umar, I'm super excited to talk about this conversation we're going to be having today. I feel like AI is talked about a lot, but not necessarily from a younger sales point of view. So Umar and I are young sales reps in the world of B2B sales, and we're going to be seeing new changes every week in the way that we build relationships and how revenue is made. Today, we're going to be touching on our personal trials and tribulations in sales, as well as some trends in AI. Is it scary? Is it helpful? And what are different generations' thoughts on it? Skipping over to our agenda, we have a few points we're going to cover through today. The first is going to be those evolving opinions on AI. The next are going to be the challenges that Umar and I face that we see every day to day. Lastly, how AI is addressing and overcoming these common sales challenges. And then the structure. So how do we put everything together to really make sense? And I want to start out by scoping the opportunity on the table because it's a big one. Generative AI is expected to bring a lot of transformation. And as a matter of fact, within B2B sales, McKinsey is predicting a $1.4 trillion per year increase in sales productivity. So how will that sales productivity be realized? That's where XIQ and other AI tools come in handy when writing emails and doing research. They help you do your prospecting and help you save time on your non-value added tasks that allow you to do more time on the things that really matter, such as sales making. But before we dive into how AI can help us, I want to touch on why we think of it and how we think of it in today's generations. So Umar, you and I talked a lot when conducting the research for this webinar, and there seems to be a gap in what people think about AI. And when I personally dove into some research, you can see on the screen that we discovered that millennials and Gen Z have a better perception of AI than their counterparts, Gen X and those baby boomers. And according to a study done by Harris Insights and Analytics, we saw that 62% of millennials were excited about the benefits over the concern of AI, while only 30% of baby boomers shared that excitement. Umar, that is crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, it's almost like, we're seeing almost a repeat of the transition from the non-internet or the pre-internet times to the internet age, and how initially, we were walking without the internet. With the internet coming in, we started running. And now it's, this exponential increase that's really taking us from running to going into almost like a hypersonic state with AI, right? And the rate of change is so fast. I mean, we were having this conversation yesterday, Taylor, and it's almost like, what you're using from an AI perspective today is already going to be outdated by tomorrow morning, right? So things are changing so fast, and it's definitely up to us to sort of stay with the curve here.
Exactly. I expect the internet to be available to me. So dare I say I expect AI to be available to me when I do my job nowadays. And Umar, what makes this even more interesting when we really dove into it and what the workforce looks like, according to the Bureau of Labor, 58% of the workforce will be those millennials in Gen Z by 2030. So what that means is, the people who aren't afraid of AI and actually see its potential and are less concerned with the potential risks are going to be the ones making the decision. That's about 60% of the workforce that is supporting that new technology.
Yeah, and I mean, you saw the opportunity on the previous slide, right? It's $1.4 trillion a year. I mean, that's massive. And the number that you're looking at on the right side of the screen, that's almost 60%. I mean, what that tells me as a sales rep in today's B2B world is I need to gear up and I need to get prepared to sell to the workforce of the future, right? So if that's going to be my prospect list, and if all of those individuals are going to be, majority millennials and Gen Z, I need to sell to them in a way that is going to resonate with them. And I need to do that and prepare for that today. So I need to bring in the ability to be agile and the ability to adapt to this ever-changing dynamic.
Exactly. It's almost about the convenience too. So I remember back in college, a professor of mine asked me in my class about AI. They were really concerned about AI in targeted ads. And we all agreed as a class that we didn't quite mind it. Why
Yeah.
sp- spend time researching for, the perfect pair of shoes or the ideal product when it can just be served up to us based on the data that they already have on us? It's not really creepy, it's more convenience.
Yeah. And I mean that's really, I mean, the keyword here is convenience, right? And that's what makes it a different ball game altogether. I feel like with AI and with the internet age, it's no longer even a fair comparison. It's not an apples to apples comparison anymore, with whether it's B2B sales or whether it's any other aspect of our lives, like using AI and not using AI, you can't really, put the two side by side. So I can completely relate to that example you just shared there as well. Yeah.
Exactly. But that's the general public. And I know me and Umar wanted to have a very personal conversation with you all. So I want to dive into what we are actually seeing. We're sales reps. We use an AI tool. We sell AI. We pretty much sleep it, breathe it, eat it all day, every day. But when we really narrowed down on those challenges for sales reps, I think we've narrowed it down to about five big ones for us. And I know the big one for me is time. I wish I had more of it. Emails take time, research takes time, follow up takes time. And how do you do that when you're in meetings and calls all day? You just can't, unfortunately. It's just not possible. Things are going to start to fall through the cracks unless you find those efficiencies. And I know I've personally been hurt through my sales process when not using AI to its fullest because I lose sales and lose relationships.
Exactly. And I think that ties really well into the second one here on the list, which they kind of go hand in hand, right? I mean, as a sales rep, my job is to be on top of the industry that I'm selling into, really understand the market dynamic and the landscape. But the effort that it takes me to actually go into the depths of the internet, have like 50,000 tabs open in my browser, and I'm looking up, one thing from here and one thing from there. It's like everything is so scattered around that it's very, very hard for me to well, it's very easy for me rather to get lost in the sauce, right? So it's a very inefficient way of gathering information, and it's a lot of effort. You talked about emails. I mean, I'm the kind of person who is a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to sending those emails out. So I know I'm spending like a lot of time and effort on those emails, and I need to find a way to make myself work in a more efficient fashion. And
Exactly. You mentioned those many tabs, Umar. I just want to pause on that. I'm sure right now, if our webinar participants looked at the top of their screen, they might be in the same boat. And I always have to laugh when I go to a demo and see a sales rep with those million tabs open. They're so hard to keep track of, and they take a lot of time and effort to manage those in itself.
exactly, agreed. And I mean, again, with that time and effort, I mean, if you're putting that in, if you're able to put that in, what you're really getting out of it is increased business acumen, right? Enhanced business acumen. And for a sales rep like you and me, Taylor, and for some of the attendees on this call today, on this webinar today, I mean, what that means is really understanding the ins and outs of not only the prospect company that I'm going to be selling into, but then it's also the industry, like I mentioned before, right? What does the competitive landscape look like? What is essentially the past, the present, and the future of my prospect company and the industry? So I need to know the newness, right? What are the opportunities? Where is this company hoping to go? What are some of the challenges that they're facing? So all of that information, gathering that and having like a holistic view of everything I need to know all in one space can be very, very difficult to do. And that's our jobs as sales reps, fortunately.
Fortunately or unfortunately, we have to do it either way. But I think that also falls into another challenging thing for me that I've always found very hard as a young sales rep is connections. I think our more experienced sales reps had a lot of time, handshakes and table stakes, but then we got thrown into it and everything's online. We're the age of the internet. So how do you really build those relationships? And I really crack it down to three different things. It's going to be the credibility and the confidence, and lastly, connection. So how do you build that when you've been on the internet your whole life and not necessarily in person? And how do you really have those really educated conversations? And lastly, Umar, the sales, the thing that actually pays the bills. How do we really narrow down on that?
Yeah, I mean, you said it, Taylor. Being a sales rep is, I mean, our job is to bring in the revenue, right? There's no revenue. If there's no sales, there's no revenue. If there's no revenue, there's no company. So at the end of the day, I mean, I think I say this with a lot of pride also. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of us can resonate, on this together, is that as sales reps, we're the ones in the trenches. We're the ones really on the front line, making it happen, having those customer facing calls. And like you said, those connections are essential, right? It's all about trust and making the sale happen, really nurturing it through the sales funnel. And I think for me, like I saw this quote the other day, and it said that the trust is the currency of sales, right? So if I don't have that, I don't have anything. And the idea is to really try to answer the question with AI today, coming back to, of course, AI, is what do sellers really need to sell? What do they really need to propel their deals forward and actually be a sales maker, right? And that's where kind of the structure starts coming in, right? A lot of the conversations that I have with my prospects, in fact, when I was on just this morning, also talked about how I was walking them through our platform, and they really appreciated how we kind of play on the word structure a little bit as well. Of course, I used it in our conversation as well, but it's really about simplifying the sales process for ourselves and for our prospects because it has a lot of involvement. There's a lot of complexities involved. So augmenting that intelligence, focusing on the who, the what, and the why of the sale. I think that's really what makes it happen at the end of the day.
Exactly. And I think that word structure is something we're beginning to hear over and over and over. I know I speak to a lot of my clients and we're shown this structure, and this structure is essentially a ton of tech stack tools thrown in front of sales reps. And so it's really hard to navigate them. So with that, I think XIQ has done a great job of structuring things out. So I do want to show you a quick live demo. And what we're going to be walking through is three main applications. It's going to be looking up your buyer, understanding their personality types, being able to write an email to them. We're then going to be looking up a business, understanding who they are and the environment they sit within. Along with that, we're going to be showing you one of our newer releases, which I'm super excited about, the Smart Account Plan. So putting things into an actionable kind of presentation, if you will, that you can use for QBRs, demos, client success, and more. And then lastly, those B2B relationships that we know we need to close the deal. So Umar, I'm going to hand this over to you to start your demo, and I'm happy to kind of help you walk through that as well.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. So I'm just going to go ahead and get out of the slides here for a second. And just building on some of the slides that you were looking at, and Taylor, you were talking us through. I mean, the first thing for us, and of course, there's no fixed order, but the first thing that I usually do, just a day in the life of, me as a sales rep and how I'm using AI is, I usually start by looking up an individual, right? Who is that individual that I need to start having an intelligent conversation with and understand their mindset, really try to resonate with them at a personal level, right? So there's a couple of ways we can do that from within the platform. We can look them up by their name, or we could also look them up by their job titles. So I went ahead and looked up the Director of Revenue Acceleration, very interesting job title here for us, and Mr. Rich Booth at Palo Alto Networks. And I thought this would be a good individual for us to just look into. So right off the bat, the first thing you're going to see is what this person's personality type is. And within the disc wheel, we can see that he is, in fact, a dominant personality, a designer subcategory. Now, what that means for me is I can simply click on this box right here, and that's going to open up this side drawer that gives me a deeper insight into some of his qualities, his tips, his behavior, what are his motivations again. So coming back to what we were talking about earlier, really trying to understand them at a deeper, more personal level. And it's giving me tips on each bit. So we have how to build trust. I talked about trust being the currency of sales. And then outreach, of course, emailing, communication, working together, and eventually selling, right? So that's really giving me a deeper insight into what kind of person he is. And I think that's a great place for me to start.
Exactly. And I think I want to double click on it because it is super important. It's not a company that signs your deal at the end of the day. It's always going to be a person's name, right? So that's how you really have to build those relationships. And again, playing on that, we are the younger generation of sales reps. This is the thing that's going to give us the confidence and the credibility to be able to reach out to Rich in a way that's going to make sense to him. You said, he's on that driver side, things are going to be more direct. We don't need the much conversation when we're talking about a deal. And then I know we want to show sales alignment too, which is a great way for sales reps to not only understand their prospects, but also themselves, Umar.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, you said it in B2B. I mean, it's super important not just to look at, the prospect sitting in front of you. You also have to understand that, you have your own personality. How does that align with your prospect or with the individual that you're going to speak to, right? Back in the day, when sales was offline, people were having conversations, building trust through multiple meetings, and trying to get those insights after having those meetings. But what's happening here is XIQ is really giving you those insights before you've even met the individual. So what it's doing is it's allowing you to get started. It's giving you a launching pad. It's doing, 80 to 90% of your heavy lifting for you. And it's really giving you a solid foundation to then build that relationship on top of. And then here, of course, like I'm logged in as myself, so it's showing me the alignment between me and Rich here, but I could also go ahead and look you up, Taylor, and perhaps we have a different alignment as well. So that's also something we could look into. But I think here I do want to point out that this is again great information to have, right? It's valuable, it's important, but until now, it's not really going to help me close the deal, right? So how do I get those actionable insights? How do I get that output? And that's where Gilroy comes in. So Gilroy is our generative AI 24/7 revenue generation assistant. And what he's really doing is acting as a partner for a sales rep. So to be very honest, and I just want to zoom out for a second here, I think in a day, I'm either having conversations with my prospects, which of course, is my job, but probably the one person that I'm having the most conversations with apart from my prospects is going to be Gilroy, because I'm asking this guy questions day in, day out. And you can see we have a prompt library for us to get started, right? So we understand that not everybody is a power user of large language models and generative AI. So we have a strong foundation yet again for us to get started. And you can click on any one of these prompts. Let's say I wanted to pick this one, try to understand some of his individual opportunities. I can simply go ahead and I just want to illustrate how easy and how quick it is to actually get a response out of Gilroy. So I've just asked Gilroy, what are this person's biggest personal opportunities to succeed within this company? And the reason I'm doing that is, again, that kind of relates to the trust aspect of the conversation, right? Rich has his goals. He needs to tick his boxes. He needs to meet his, targets. But then he also has this aspect of, what's in it for me? What are my personal opportunities to succeed? And that's where the sales rep really needs to go in and meet the individual, right? So this is what Gilroy is really doing. It's allowing us to see what are some of the focus areas for Rich, and how does he like to be spoken to? What are some topics that are of interest to him specifically?
Exactly. I also want to point out that this isn't just looking at, Rich, his opportunities, his personality. It's also looking at a document hub, which XIQ allows you to essentially upload those private value proposition marketing documents from your own kind of space up into XIQ in a secure place for our AI to learn off of. And that's going to be off of a one-to-one or a team basis. So it'll only be available to your specific XIQ instance, but it gives us leverage on learning more about your product and making that value proposition and alignment even stronger.
Exactly correct. And I think an even better use case for really leveraging these documents, using XIQ is this is another question that I went ahead and asked Gilroy ahead of time, right? I said, go ahead and write an email to introduce and position the value propositions of XIQ as an AI-powered revenue growth engine. So there's a couple of things that I'm doing here. Number one, I am asking Gilroy to write an email to this individual based on how they like to consume information and how they like to read emails. What are the kind of emails that, they would be more likely to interact with? And then I'm also asking it to position us as an AI-powered revenue growth engine. So it's really a specific ask if you think about it. And I just want to zoom out here once again and kind of remind, each other and myself as well, the amount of time that it would take me to actually write an email like this that is, delicately balanced with having nuances of his personality, but then also my solution, that would take me, I would say anywhere from, I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't know if everybody agrees, but for me, it would probably take me somewhere around 30 to 45 minutes, if I'm being honest, right? And
That's right on par. That's
yeah,
right. If you're anything like me, I used to have to write out these emails, hey, great to meet you, backspace, backspace, backspace. Hey, here are the documents, backspace, backspace, backspace. And now it just gives you that email. And it may not be 100%. We understand that, but it's going to get you a lot further than starting from scratch.
exactly. And that's what, Gilroy and XIQ, well, Gilroy more than anything else, that's what Gilroy really is, right? It's a 24/7 assistant, a partner that helps you get started. And it's better than, starting off with a blank slate. So, Taylor, we started to understand a little bit about the personality type and how we're going to do our outreach. But I also want to get a holistic view of the business, right? What does the market dynamic, the competitive landscape, the future, the past, and the present of Palo Alto look like? And that's where I can now open up the XIQ company page for the company that I want to look up. So right off the bat, again, this is a lot of information, but that's why we have these tabs on the top to navigate through this space. So let's say I wanted to dive into sales triggers, which are essentially news items that are coming in real time. So again, I just want to focus on the real time aspect of this. Think about the value, Taylor, that this is bringing, right? I mean, I'm waking up every morning. The first thing I do is I log on to XIQ, my trusted AI companion, and I'm getting all of these latest and greatest news items from trusted sources. It's telling me what my accounts are up to, what are some of the latest developments in the industry. I can also parse these out based on 23 different categories. And I can get sent, emails or alerts within my app that are going to help me stay abreast of any new developments in my accounts.
Exactly. That's the building credibility part, knowing the company, knowing what's important, knowing the good and the bad to really have those conversations with your prospect.
Exactly. And something that we've actually recently added in that I've been using very much is the summary feature. So if you click on an article, Gilroy actually goes ahead and summarizes that article for you in real time. So I don't even have to go ahead and read the entire thing. And that's again hitting on that time aspect where, you don't have to necessarily spend that time. You can if you wanted, but XIQ is really, doing that heavy lifting and that effort and that time saving for you. So we have some of these articles. Of course, we can read through them. We can share them with our prospect and use them to, strategize as well. But then we also have something that we've all heard before, which is the SWOT analysis. And Taylor, I mean, I don't even want to get started on the amount of time and effort that this takes to build out, right?
Exactly. I remember when I first ever got a job, they made me do this by hand.
Oh
I
my
was
God.
going through 10K reports. I was going through annual reports, putting everything down, writing it out, and it took me forever. And I also didn't understand what any of it meant. So this is a great way for your sales reps to come in or yourself to come in and understand, what are those strengths? What are the weaknesses? And how do I align my solution to these to help build opportunities for our prospects?
Exactly. And that's a great point, right? I mean, where you said that even if you were able to actually put some of these into a SWOT analysis, understanding them is a whole other story, right? Realizing and thinking about what that means for your prospect is a whole other conversation. So here you have a very digestible, easy to understand SWOT analysis, but let's say you wanted to dive deeper into any particular one of these opportunities, right? You could simply copy paste it, open up Gilroy, and start asking questions. Hey, tell me more about integration of AI and machine learning for this company. And it's really that easy to then have a deeper dive into, a particular area within the SWOT analysis. Now, you can go ahead and ask Gilroy these questions. I'm just going to click out of here for a second. But something else that we've done is we've automated the entire process of analyzing an account and building a strategy around it. And that's where the smart account plan comes in. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the smart account plan here. And that's going to open up this side panel that you can see on the right side of the screen. Now, this is giving me an insight into what are some of the sections that are going to be included in this document that I'm going to get. So we have an account overview, of course, a financial summary, competitor analysis, all of that good stuff. Then we have an account strategy. So we have solutions alignment, and that's where Gilroy acts as a solutions architect for us as well. We have a business case. And then finally, we have those B2B relationships that Taylor was talking about, where we're going to be looking at an entire buying group or a buyer group, because we're not really selling to one individual, right? We're also selling to, I think research has shown on average, I think it's 8 to 12 people in a buyer group these days. So we have to understand the dynamics of what that would look like. So once I hit start, it's going to ask me a couple of questions. And to save time, I went ahead and built it out for us ahead of time. So here's what the finished smart account plan looks like. Right off the bat, of course, we have some high-level information in the form of an executive summary, along with a table of contents. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click through some of these. So we have an account overview, gives me that essential information that I need to know. And then we have a financial summary. Now, I want to take a pause here and just resurface something that Taylor was talking about earlier. Not everyone's a financial analyst, right? I mean, sure, I'm a sales rep. I like to think that I am a seasoned sales rep, or at least I'm getting there. I have an understanding of how companies work and what market dynamics look like, but there are things that I would miss out, right? But what XIQ is really doing here is, again, enhancing my business acumen. It's giving me an analysis on the right side that's allowing me to understand exactly what each number means, of course, which I do know, but I also need to know what it means for my prospect, right? What does it translate into? So that's where the actionable insights come in. And it's giving me an insight into where this company is heading for the future, followed by an in-depth competitor analysis. So here we have a side-by-side view. And Taylor, we can actually go ahead and customize this list of competitors as needed, because it goes ahead and gives you a list of challenges that these companies are facing. And then something that's very interesting, how do those challenges impact your prospect? So not only is it telling you the specifics of the competitive landscape, it's also telling you how that impacts the company that you're looking into. And I think that, I mean, the value of that is just unparalleled.
Exactly. Building that business acumen, Umar. This is what this whole thing's doing, and it's structuring it out for you as well.
Exactly. And I don't think I mentioned, but creating this smart account plan, it takes about 8 to 10 minutes. So that's the value that AI is really bringing in, right? I mean, those are the kind of insights that really help you, again, propel your deals forward. So followed by the competitor analysis, we have the SWOT analysis, of course. This is the same one that we saw in the platform itself, spread over 2 pages. And then we have some revenue growth opportunities. So I mentioned the past, the present, and the future of my accounts or of my prospect. This is where the future starts to come in. So what are the growth opportunities? Where can this company go? And as a sales rep, I take a pause and I start to think about what are some ways that I can sit into these gaps? How can I become a partner and help these individuals achieve these opportunities at this company? Next, we have challenges. So, of course, I got to look at the past as well and the present. What are some of the difficulties? What are some of the problems that they're facing? And again, really come in as a partner and help them solve some of these problems. So we have those challenges. And then we have the solutions alignment piece where it takes into account, the specificities of what I'm selling or what I'm offering, and it puts those into the gaps that exist in the opportunities and the challenges at my prospect company. Super comprehensive, builds that out for me. And then Taylor, this one's one of my favorites because
Yeah.
we
This is one
we
of my
actually
favorite parts too. This builds everything out into a business case and a business plan, if you will. I don't think I've created a business plan this in-depth since Smart Account Plan. And it goes down and goes everything through executive summary, objectives, implementation plan. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, lists out the steps for you. And then one of my personal favorite parts, if it's not referenced, it's not true. We reference all our points within this. So you can go back, read more on those articles that we're pulling information from. So Mar, this is definitely one of my favorite features that I use all the time.
Exactly. And I think this is also something that's gotten a lot of positive feedback from, our current clients as well. Like people are always talking about the ease of use. Number one, how easy it is to really build these out, but then also the value, right? So these smart account plans, I do want to point out, are fully customizable, right? This is a PowerPoint that I'm scrolling through, so you can go ahead and edit these as needed. If you felt that you needed to make some changes, you could do those. You could also go ahead and ask Gilroy more questions about any particular aspect of this business plan or this business case. So there's no, this isn't not necessarily where it stops, right? You can go ahead and go as deep or as granular as you would like to go. And then finally, Taylor, we have that holistic view of the entire buyer group where we're looking at the individual personalities of all of the individuals in that buying committee. And then we categorize them into doers, coaches, and blockers.
Exactly. This allows us to really focus on which groups. I wish I could go to all of these people and have one-to-one meetings, but it's just not possible with the amount of time we have. So it allows me to put people into groups and then manage them, say, hey, I'm going to bring my doers to a conversation. We're going to go through things really fast. I'm going to bring my coaches. They're going to help me connect the dots to who I should talk to next. I'm going to bring in my blockers, and then I'm also going to look at, what are the ROIs on it, bring them all the use cases, and really fill them in. So it allows me to break that up into biteable pieces.
Exactly. And then it doesn't stop there either. It actually gives you a step further, more intel on each of these individuals. And Taylor, I went ahead and pulled you up for this one. So it's actually going ahead and giving me alignment. So if we go back to that sales alignment piece that we were looking at within the platform itself, this is the same idea, right? So I went ahead, called you out here, and it's telling me how well or not well you align with each of these people. And then it's also giving me an individual opportunity along with an icebreaker or a conversation starter for each one. So as I scroll through these, you'll see that, it starts off with the high alignment individuals. You have an opportunity individual and then icebreaker for each one. Then it gives you those that you have medium alignment with doing the same thing. And then finally, you have those individuals with low alignment. So it's really giving you that intel in a very nicely packaged, structured keyword here document that you can actually go ahead and customize as needed as well. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and jump back into some of these slides here.
And Umar, that was so much information and it only
Yeah.
took 8 minutes. And the nice thing about Smart Account Plan is that you can essentially put in your fill in the blanks and then you can scale this across multiple companies. And I know one thing we didn't show is the Sales Sigma, which allows you to track the adoption of XIQ. We're very transparent about adoption, usage, and that ROI. So sales reps can see it themselves, team leads can see it themselves, and that's how we really narrow down on what people are clicking through and how they're kind of tracking their own deals. So Umar's going to flash it up on the screen right here. We have a gamification of the platform, if you will, because we know that sales reps, me being one myself, can get distracted pretty easily if they don't have kind of that timeline narrowed down for them. So you can see your engagement, the people you viewed, and then you can make changes if needed.
Absolutely. And then you also have actually an insight into where you stand within your company. And this is something that I do more often than I would like to admit. So if you click on the leaderboard, it actually gives you a snapshot of where you stand in terms of usage and adoption of the platform with respect to your team members. So you can see that. And then, of course, I think just from a visibility aspect, putting it all together in one space, allowing your team, not only your colleagues, but then also your leadership to actually look at some of the effort that you're putting in towards the sale. I think that's also of a lot of value. So I'll just go ahead, Taylor, and reshare my slides here. Thanks for the reminder on that.
Of
And
course. And what this really brings us back to is that word structure. XIQ really transforms the way that sales organizations and professionals are operating by offering that well-rounded suite of tools that's designed to make my life, Umar's life, and everyone's life easier in sales. Start out with that smart account plan that's at your fingertips. It sets those objectives out very clearly. You pair that with that real-time personality intelligence that you can then know your buyers on a deeper level and meet them where they are in their mindset, along with that full sight of account and industry intelligence. You then have all the information that you need to make those informed decisions and have that business acumen. The platform then even creates your outreach for you with call scripts, emails, LinkedIn posts, you name it, Gilroy can probably do it. And I know we drink our own champagne here at XIQ. So I think what really sets XIQ apart is the ability to provide that structure in the sales process. It really creates that loop of scalable simplicity. And I know those are a bit of words to say in a mouth, but it really is. It's scalable simplicity that you can do over and over and over for each one of your accounts. And it really creates that personalized sales experience without having to use all the time and effort that Umar and I first started on.
exactly. And I think, we showed the sales sigma in the end. And I think for me, something that stands out from there is the ability to actually measure your success and your effort. If you can't measure something, you can't improve it, right? At the end of the day. So, it's giving us the ability to do that. And I mean, this is how I spend my day as a sales rep, as an AI enabled sales rep, which is what I like to call myself now. This is how I'm spending my day. I'm waking up, I'm looking at, the alerts around my accounts, and then I'm working on, you know, personalized outreach, those emails, getting that account intelligence that's going to help me make the sale happen and propel my deals forward.
Exactly. And with that, I want to thank everyone for coming, spending some time with Umar and I, hearing our experience as sales reps. If you ever want to have a conversation about the sales world in general, Umar and I are open books. We talk to clients every single day. You heard our insights. We'd love to hear what you're seeing, how you're navigating the sales world, or if you just want an XIQ demo to learn more about it, we're happy to do that as well. So it's a QR on the screen, so you can go ahead and schedule a demo there.